Hello all, it's Dominique here, and I just want to talk about the dressmaking process so that we have more of an idea what goes on behind the scenes. I've laid out the table here, as you can see, with different items that are involved in the dressmaking process. First of all, we would have a sketch. I haven't got one down at the moment, but we'd have a sketch or design, and you try to stay as true to that as possible. Then you'd have this, which is a production schedule. You'd need to have some sort of plan of how long things will take and what to do when and when your deadlines are, say like a fitting, a second fitting, for instance, and things like that. Then you would need a lay plan, a costing sheet. So as you can see here, I've just filled this in quite very briefly, where there is trouser and top laid down on fabric to just show me how much will take, how much room it will take up and how much fabric is needed. Then moving on over here, we have the patterns, which look very technical and that will be the garment construction pieces that you do on big reels of paper. Then following that, you do some development stage, and you end up having some trace-offs after that, which look like this. So they've got a seam allowance around, like a 1 centimetre usually, seam allowance around each pattern piece that you're going to lay on the fabric and cut around. And then finally there is some fabric here, some cheap fabric, usually like muslin. This is, it needs to be ironed and pressed obviously, but this is what the kind of feel and look to what it looks like, what muslin looks like. And that's just a cheap cotton fabric, and that allows you to just make up your prototype, your mock-up first before you go on to the final stage of making the garment up in, your chosen fabric. If you were putting the job over to a seamstress, because, obviously that's a lot to take on board for one person, you might want some help, you might want a seamstress, you might want someone that does that, then you would need to give them a sheet, like a specification sheet like this, and this will just have all the details on there, like maybe a zip. You'll have the pictures front and back, and then you'd have maybe a zip on there, like a fastening. You'd want to say how long it is, and you might want to say where it is positioned, for example, and what kind of, is it an invisible zip or is it a concealed zip, so things like that, like the details, and that will go on there. And so yeah, I hope that really helps people see what goes on behind the scenes, because yeah, it's not as easy as one might think.